Okay, I'll start. Okay, so today we are doing a parrot, a Macaw parrot to be exact. Apparently, there are many different kinds, but I chose this one. It's called a scarlet macaw because, well, it's like a rainbow of colors. So it's nice to play around with. And so we'll be doing a scarlet macaw parrot. Okay, so some of them are already endangered, so that's this is a good way also to bring attention to their plight and at the same time appreciate them. Okay, so I'll be using colors from two palettes, the Classico and the Moderno. I'll ready Vista also on the side just in case. I'm also going to need colors from it, but most of the colors will be definitely from Classico. Okay, so the reference photo that I'll be using is this one. Okay, so you will find this in the event. If you look at the event, it's there. And also it comes with a line drawing that I did, so you can also save the line drawing, print it out, use it for tracing, or use it as a guide, up to you. You can do a grid of it and then use that as a guide if you want to learn how to draw it freehand. But if you just want to go directly to painting, then you can trace it for sure. So I made sure that the lines are dark enough that you can print it on any paper and then you can trace it if you have a light box, or you can do it digitally. If you have an iPad, then you can also trace using your iPad. Okay, so let's start. Okay, I'm going to flip the camera down now so that you will see my desk and well, me working. Okay, so here it is. I flipped it around, and now let me zoom it a bit so that you are nearer. Okay, so I hope you can see, I'm adding lights. I hope you can see the parrot. Okay, I've sketched it, not too dark, but you can also darken it if you want because the colors are vibrant. So you'll be able to cover them with the colors once you paint over them. Okay, so let me just open my reference here on the computer so I can see it. Okay, so if you want, you can darken the colors just so you can darken your lines so that you can see them much better later on. Up to you how dark you will draw it, but this time around you can actually do it darker. In my case, I don't mind actually seeing the lines in the end, but if you do, then you can just go over it with your kneaded eraser. Okay, in my case, I've already drawn it. Here it is. Again, there is a line drawing for this in the event, so you can find it there if you want to give it a go. Okay, so first, Classico. Okay, because since the Macaw has most of the essential colors, red, yellow, green, blue, they're all practically here. And for the green, you can always mix it using your blues and yellows. Okay, so here are the colors, just so you can see, and they're all here. Okay, so let's start. Okay, prepare your stuff. As usual, we will start with our lighter colors. Okay, so choose your brushes. As usual, I go with my regular round brush, and this is from the Turner collection. Okay, so let's start with the lightest, which is yellow. Okay, so we'll go for our bright yellow right here. This is lemon yellow. Okay, and let's mix it with a bit of the gamboge. Let me just clean this up first. Okay, so you can have a separate mixing plate if you find that your mixing plate is like mine and it's already used up. I have several because I don't always get to clean them right away. Okay, so I'm going to mix lemon yellow and Hansa yellow to get a mid yellow between the two, so not too cool and not too warm. Okay, so let's go over the parts with the yellow. Okay, so you can do the first few layers really more relaxed, because the details of the feathers, you can add that as a last touch. Okay, so don't stress over painting exactly where the yellow is. As long as you get the general placement, that's fine. So I'm just adding a bit more to the really more yellow areas. Okay, and let's see, just to be sure, here too I'm going to add a bit of yellow because I will do layering as usual. I really like to layer my colors so that I get more depth. And because this is a bird with feathers, you can do your strokes like so. Okay, and we have that. And now let's go to our second color, which is green right here. So again, we'll mix our green. Let's go for our cool green here, cerulean blue, or you can use phthalo blue. Okay, let's go with phthalo blue. Okay, right here we have a bit of a green spot here, so phthalo blue. Okay, with lemon yellow. Let's see if it will be too bright or a nice green. Okay, so if it's too bright, let's add a bit of the warm yellow. And then a bit of red to tone it down. Okay, so just mix the colors until you get the color that you're looking for. Okay, and once you have it, you can always test it on a piece of paper. Let me just look for some. Okay, let's test it here. Okay, it's a nice deep green. A bit more blue just to brighten it a bit, just a bit. So really, to get your greens, just experiment with your blues and yellows. Okay, and then we'll add it to here, right below the yellow. So some parts of the yellow, their tips will have the green. And then it will overlap some of the yellow. Okay, so there's not a big swatch of green. There's just an area where there's green overlapping yellow, and overlapping will be overlapped with blue. And we also see some here, so let's add that. So just take a look at your reference photo and try to match it, but don't worry if it's not exact, okay? We're not aiming for exact. Nobody will be able to tell in the end. But it's always nice to have a reference photo as a guide so you're not painting blindly color-wise and location-wise generally. Okay, now we have the green. Let's just check if I have... Okay, this one has a speck of green too. And you can always deepen this later on. You can add more green if you'd like. So don't worry. Okay, so now we can move on to our blue down here. Okay, so I'm first working with a yellow, green, blue, and then later I will add the red because red can be very strong, so we'll leave that for later. Let's go for the blue now. Okay, so this is going to be a mix. Let's start with phthalo blue. Okay, right here we'll mix the two, phthalo blue and ultramarine. Okay, so let's do it here. So let's start with phthalo blue, and then we'll use ultramarine to deepen it later. Okay, so again, layering. Hi Vivian, glad you're able to join. Okay, so let's start. Let's add the phthalo blue. Again, this is just the first layer, so don't worry. You don't have to get everything down on the first layer, but be sure to just cover the areas with blue. So that's why I mentioned earlier that you can do your lines darker if you want, because this is a very vibrant bird and you will be doing really deep coloring, so the lines will be definitely covered. Okay, so again, I'm going to thin the edges right here towards the green so that they will blend a little bit with each other. So you will be doing a lot of layers for sure when you do this bird. So just be prepared to do a lot of layers, and you'll be fine. So again, you don't have to finish this in one sitting. Yes, vibrant. This is one painting that you can really just, you know, go strong with your colors. So no fear with this one. The only thing that you will have to do here is really layer, layer, layer. So that's fun. You can do this in 5 days, 1 layer per day. Again, you don't have to do this in one sitting like me. So I really encourage you not to, so that you actually enjoy the step-by-step process. I wouldn't do this in one sitting normally either, so don't. So as you can see, I'm really quite controlling with my strokes. But if you're more loose, then, you know, you'll do this faster than me. Okay, so first layers are done for the blue, green, and yellow. Again, you can mix the two. You can add more green, make it fade with the blue. If you feel like the blue covered too much, you can just go back to your green and add dabs of it here and there, which I will, because I actually want the green to be darker. So later I will mix a darker green, or if you already have a green ready, then feel free to use that. Green is one of the colors that would be very useful to have a pre-mixed tube or pan of. I'm sure you guys already have your favorite greens. Mine would be sap green, hooker's green. Those are really some of the useful greens. Okay, so now that we have this done, this is of course still very light, but that's the first layer. Now we can go to the reds. Okay, so let's see. I have a pearl red here, but I think it's too neutral for this now. I'm going to go with my Pearl Scarlet right here from the Moderno. So this is from the Moderno set. So Pearl Scarlet. It's a bit warmer than the Pearl Red if you put them side by side. So not too far, but this is more of a mid-neutral red, and this is more a bit on the warmer side. So I'm going to use this now for my first layer for the bird because it's a really vibrant, warm red. Okay, so let's go for it. Let me empty this pot right here. I generally just go for the sections that I have a similar color and I mix it there. I don't mind a little mix, but if you do, then you can totally cleanse it really, really well. Okay, so Pearl Scarlet. So we need a lot of it. So I'm just going to go for it and prepare a lot. But it's not a mixture color, so even if you run out, then it's not so hard to just create another batch. Okay, so we'll use it all over where we see red. Okay, so let me start with here at the head. Okay. Be careful around the beak. You want to preserve the white of the beak. So if you want to be very detailed, I actually created a drawing that's very detailed. So you can use that and be as detailed as you want, but you don't have to. You can also do a more impressionistic approach to this, as long as you get the placement of the colors, the texture of the fur here and there. Feathers. Gosh, I'm making it into a four-legged. The feathers. Okay. And try to do the edges not too clean because you want to actually show the ends of the feathers. Also be careful around the eyes. You want to leave white around the eyes. Singular eye. It's only one. Okay, so this is where the yellow under the first layer comes in handy. You see it layers very, very well. So you get a more natural orangey color around this area because you first added the yellow and now we're overlapping it with red. You can always switch to a smaller brush later on and you can add the feather-like ends. Or if you have a round brush with nice fine tips, then you can already start adding them, like here. Okay, so apply the color first and worry about the texture later on. Okay, so the reds are all over the beak. So I'm just trying to get the general texture. Okay. And once I have that, then I can go and just apply the red. So it's only really the edges that take time at this point, because I want the edges like so. Okay, so that's why I picked the scarlet, because it really goes well with the other colors here and looks more correct for this parrot. So as long as you get your color choices right, 1/3 of your work is done. Sometimes what's going to bug you the most is the color. Like you're not getting the color that you want to see. So don't hurry and take time with deciding which color you're seeing, which color should you use. So I actually forgot to sketch the part of the claw, so I'm painting around it. Okay, so again, take your time going beside the blue, painting around it. Okay. And I actually forgot to paint the blues here, so I'm just going to mark it now before I forget. Okay. Sometimes it can't be helped, like I paint over that. Don't stress. Again, at the end of the day, no one will compare your reference photo to your work side by side. Okay, and here. But you're already seeing that it's a parrot. So just getting the colors there already is a huge difference. Okay, let me check. Okay, I feel like, yeah, okay. So let's go back here and finish all the red first layer. So we are just the first layer. So again, you can actually take a break here, do this the next ones the next day or whenever you have more time. So again, you don't have to finish in one go. So take your time. So the areas that I added yellow earlier will give me a more orangey look. So that's the magic of layering with watercolor. I really love layering. it gives me the best possible finish. Okay, so remember, if you feel like you painted over areas that you shouldn't have, you can always lift them off. Okay, so don't worry, it's not the end of the world. So now I'm trying to get the shape of the red here and there. All right. Okay, let's see. So every now and then it's good to take back a step and take stock of the progress and see if you're okay. If you need to wait, add a little bit more somewhere. Okay, so now I'm going to add, when the red dries, you can use a blow dryer, of course, to hasten it, or you can wait for it and work somewhere else. Okay, let's see. Let's work here. So the beak is a sort of very pale reddish, yellowish color. Okay, so let's see. Let's just mix a bit. A very pale orange. Okay, and paint it. Over the beak. Okay, so it's not very white. So if it's not white, then if your paper is white, then you have to go over it with the color. Okay, so even if it's just the lightest stain, it will make a difference. And here too, it's also not white. So using the same color I used here, I'm going to go over this whole section. Okay, and let's see, are you dry? Okay, I'm going to use a blow dryer to hasten it a bit. Okay, now let's continue. Okay, let's work on our details. So the green needs more depth, so let's do that. Okay, so our Moderno palette has greens, so let's get some greens that would be good. Let's go for phthalo green. Okay, phthalo green. So this is where the Moderno palette comes in really handy, because it has a really nice set of colors, bright, vibrant, jewel-like colors that this bird has. Okay, and we'll deepen it with cobalt blue, also in the Moderno. Hi! Glad you're able to join. Okay, so I'm going for cobalt because it's more neutral. This is one of the blues that I have, whether in oil or acrylic or watercolor, because it's just a neutral blue. Very nice. Very good for color mixing. Okay, so I'm going over the areas with the green to deepen the green. Before we go into much detail. Okay, and again, soften the edges with a wet brush. Okay, not too much, just enough that you're getting the shape of the feathers. And if you feel like you need more, just drop in more color here and there. So in my case, I'm also adding here, because this area is shadowed. So I'm already starting to add in the details that I see. So for the shadow areas, I'm going to use all the colors that I'll be using here and pile them on top of each other to create the shadows instead of just using brown. So it's going to be more, to look more natural. Okay, so instead of going for a brown that you already have, instead try to, if possible, mix a brown or create shadows from the colors that you already have in your palette. So in my case, I'm using green because if you mix green with red, you get brown. Okay, so let me just make sure I'm getting this right. So if your sketch is not dark enough, you're actually going to lose it once you pile on your colors. So don't be afraid to darken that sketch when you're doing it, so you will not lose it once you have already 2 to 3 layers. Okay, so now it's time for the blue. So let's use cobalt blue. Okay, I think cobalt blue will be perfect. This is from the Moderno palette, cobalt blue. This is cobalt blue right here. So I think it will go very well with this blue that's very bright. But we need that bright blue under. It will help with the color, so that the color is not just a dark blue that's dull. It will be a more interesting blue. Okay, so I'm going to start from down here because it actually has highlights here and there. And then mix it a little bit with the green, overlap it with the green. So I like this better. Okay, so with the first layer that was phthalo blue GS, green shade. And then for the second layer, cobalt blue with a dash of phthalo. So I have darkened it, but it still has that bright blue zing. Excuse me. Okay. And then we will blend it with the green. Okay, cool. So there we have it. And let's see. Okay, so for now that's cool. And then let's go under here where I forgot to use anything. Okay, so let's go for the same shade for the first layer. So there is actually the claw here, so I'm just going to paint around that. But if you do paint over it, no worries, because it is actually very dark, so you can always add that layer on top of these more colorful layers. So this is very dark brown, so even if you do forget about it and paint over it, it's not a problem. I'm just trying to paint around it so that I don't forget that it's there. Okay, so this is just the first layer. We will again layer more later on. So if you do a more detailed sketch, then at least you can get to paint with confidence. You know where things should be. So this is actually red. Okay, wait, let me just pick this, lift this. Okay, you can lift it off, wipe, and then apply, like me for example. This is first red with a dash of blue. Okay, so okay to make mistakes. It's still fixable. Alright, so now let's add the blue that's overlapping here, since this is dry already. So there's blue here at the end. There's blue going up, like so. And then I like to always soften, especially if it looks soft in the reference. Just with a wet brush, just dip your brush in water. Okay, and it's the same here. Okay, so blue. On the edges. And this too is deeper blue here. But sometimes you just know that you're going to have to go at it with a second layer. So just wait for it to dry and add that. Okay. So for now, that's all good. I think I see a bit of red here too. So let me just add that. Just a dash. There's also a bit of yellow. Okay, so now let's go to switch to a smaller brush because we're doing more details now. Okay, let's see, which brush should I use? Okay, I'm going to go for a smaller, maybe number 3 round brush and a 2/0 round brush. Okay, so for the red, for shading, we are going to have to mix a deeper red. So I'm going to go and mix my scarlet, And then I'm going to add phthalo green. This is from the Moderno palette. Okay, so I get a deeper red that I will use to add the details, the shadowing. Okay, so you can always add more green if you want it darker. Okay, but this is my favorite way of creating the darker shade without just adding brown to the color. So you'll get a more natural looking brown. So again, I'm just looking at my reference and just adding the details. You don't have to be super copying your reference, but it's good to just have it there so you have a guide. So in my case, I'm just trying to see where the details are, trying to get the general look of things. But again, since I provided a very detailed sketch, you can definitely do a more detailed style of painting, up to you. In my case, I'm just winging it. So if you feel like it's too light, again, no worries. You can totally still layer more to it, add more to it later on. Okay. So let me continue down here. So I will definitely be adding more layers later on. But for now, I'm quite happy with how it is. So if you do more layers, you will get a more natural progression from your shadowing. So instead of just extreme light color and extreme dark, you will get to do a more natural mid-shade shadows. Okay, and I always just wet my brush and go over the areas that I feel might be too harsh line-wise. You can always, again, soften it with your wet brush. Okay, so don't be afraid to go for it with your lines, with your shades, because you can always soften it. You can always lift off the areas that you feel are too dark or too much. Okay, so now let's go here. Now I'm going to still add another layer because I feel like it's too light. So let me add another layer of Birol. But I'm going to add a bit of yellow to it. Okay, but I have New Gamboge here, a very golden yellow. So I will use that from the Moderno. So this is New Gamboge. It is also a really useful yellow to have. New Gamboge, I will mix a little bit of it with the scarlet to give a more vibrant, more warmer, much warmer red for this layer here. I feel like it needs that more pop of red. Okay, so I will apply it here at the middle. And then also here, I will overlap it with the shadows. And up to here. So now I'm doing a strokes kind of application, which is perfect for the texture of the feathers. So as you can see, really a number of layering needs to happen. So, but don't be discouraged. Again, you don't have to finish it in one sitting. So I'm glad I can still see the sketching that I did. Okay, so like I mentioned at the start, I actually suggest that you darken your sketches because they will be covered. So your lines will be gone. So if you draw too lightly, it will disappear. Okay, so this is another layer of red. Same scarlet red mixed in with gamboge. Okay, so to make the red pop even more. Because earlier I feel like the red was just too pale. Okay, so now it looks better. I like it, and okay. I'll do it a bit here, but just a bit because this is more in shadow, so it's actually deeper. But just to make things look together, that they go together. Okay, so always aim for a more harmonious palette. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my smaller brush and we'll work on the details. But before that, I will use my blow dryer to dry things quickly because we are going for the details now. All right. So I'm actually going to go for the 2/0 round brush, small, so that I can really control things. Okay, so again with my scarlet and green, okay, phthalo green mix. So I will now draw the feather, each feather. So if you can still see your sketch, then that would really come in handy. So for now, I can't clearly see all of mine, so I'm just going to try to guess. Okay, and here it's actually quite overlapped, almost like scales if you look at it from the side. Okay, so it doesn't have to be extremely detailed, okay? Again, you can stop with just the colors and just randomly add the shading here and there if you like. Okay, so now let's go for green for the yellow and green part. Let's switch to green, which we still have here. Okay, let's see. And now we'll switch to blue, but we'll darken it. Okay, so let's get our blue, ultramarine. Okay, we'll add a bit of orange to it. Okay, so adding the opposite color will darken the color that you're using. So if it's blue, you add orange. So here I'm trying to determine, because the lines in the blue are really covered, the sketching. So one thing you should learn from me is to sketch darker than I did. Okay, so there's a bit of shadow here. So again, let's use the blue that we have. Upwards here. Let me switch to a slightly bigger brush because it's taking forever. So I'm just fixing the shape here. It's more rounded. So just fix the shape. Then add the red that I still have. So it's nice to have leftover colors. Okay, go back to my blue to add the shadows here. So again, instead of just opting for brown, use the colors you have in your palette so it looks more natural. Okay, and you can always soften the lines if you think they're too much, or you can add more if you feel like it's not enough. Okay, in my case, I'm adding more blue to some areas. Especially here at the bottom, and then softening it as it goes up. Okay, so don't be afraid to go for as many layers as you feel like it should take. But of course, be sure that the paper that you're using can handle it. Okay, if your paper is on the thin side, then it will be hard to do so. But if it's thick paper, then it can take much abuse. So when you add the texture and the details of the feather, suddenly your work will not look so flat. So again, you don't have to do exactly as you see, just as long as you get the general placement, the general look of things. Because I'm pretty sure I'm not doing things exactly, and it's okay, it doesn't look too off. Okay, so let's go back to the reds here. I'm going to add a bit more green just to darken it. So I'm just adding texture and a bit of rendering. And then softening it here and there for the areas that aren't too dark. And then for the areas that are actually quite dark, then I'll add a bit more green. here. Okay, so now let's go for a even deeper blue. So you can use, I like to use ultramarine with brown to create a very, very deep blue. Okay, so this is ultramarine. And then I'm going to use raw umber. If you have burnt umber, even better. And then go over this part with a really dark blue. So with the blue mixed in with the brown, it still looks harmonious with the rest of your palette. So again, try not to just reach for the brown. Try to mix it with your other colors as well, so that it looks more natural. And then I'm adding a bit of ultramarine here at the edges. And then blending it up to the brown, and then blending the ultramarine here with the brown that I applied here. Then going back to the brown. With a bit of red here. So it's a mishmash of colors right next to each other and slightly overlapping. But if you add your texture, it will really make a huge difference. So do add the texture, even if it's not too detailed. All right, so our bird is coming together. Okay, let's add the red here. So we'll now use the mid red that we have, the Perol red from the classical palette, and use that to create the texture here. Again, you can let me switch to smaller brush so I can create thinner lines. Okay, so I'm going to just do very fine fur, I keep saying fur, very fine feather-like texture even going out a bit because it's quite fine here. Okay, so all around the head, from here a bit, going out a bit towards the eye. But be careful and just use the general direction, okay? Okay, and this part is shadowed, so we'll be using this dark red here that we still have. Add that here. And then let's use the Pyrrole red, not the scarlet, with the green to create an even deeper red. So this is Pyrrole red with emerald green. Then let's soften the edges just to let it blend with the rest of the red. And again, if you feel like you need more shadowing later on, you can always add. I feel like I should add more yellow here, so you can do that. You can just strengthen the yellow. It'll still show up, don't worry. Okay, and now let's work on the head. Okay, so this is black. So let's just use black that we have here. Or if you don't have black, then you can mix your black. You can mix your 3 colors, and you can get a kind of black. If you don't want to use a black, you can mix a little brown with it and tone down the black a bit. But it's actually quite dark, so you can just use black. Okay, so let's start at the bottom because this is all black. So be careful because this is very dark. Again, switch to a smaller brush if you're having trouble getting details done. Sometimes my hand shakes a lot that I really switch to a smaller brush. Okay, and then I'm going to paint this to black because the upper beak, the lower half is actually grayish. So I'm also leaving a white edge because there is a white edge on the beak. So just paint around it. Or again, if you're having trouble, you can always apply masking fluid to that and preserve it so you don't have to worry about painting around it. Okay, and now I'm going to rinse off most of the black from my brush and apply whatever is left on my brush, if it's not dark enough, to the edge where I see a deep gray. So it's not black, it's gray. And then here too. So it's not a clean straight line, it's very textured. Okay. And then there's a bit of overlap here, and then again I'm going to rinse all the black from my brush and just soften the edges. I always try to soften the edges if I don't see a harsh line. Try to add a bit more black here. So it's better to just work on things slowly and layer rather than painting things too dark and then having to fix it after by lifting and patting down. Okay, so take your time. And here now I'm going to darken this because this is more on the black side. Okay, now I'm happier with things. I'm just adding the little details to make it look more organic. And then I'm going to add a bit more orangey color to the beak, just slightly right here. It's actually more yellow, so let's add more yellow, like a stain. So it's like when you're painting the eye, it shouldn't be white because if you look at your eye, it's not really white, it's a stained white. So we'll do the same for the beak, so it looks more natural. Okay, and let's fix this. Okay, so it looks like it's wrapping around. Okay, so let's add the texture. Gosh, the texture is quite detailed. So let's go for a pale red. Okay, so let's go for a pale red. You can always test it, okay? If it's very light, then you should test it so that you can see if you need to add more color. So no regrets. Okay, so the texture is lines. So you don't have to do all the little dots, but just get the general texture. So it's like from here moving like so, and circling around the eye. Okay, and now for the eye, we'll start with let's see, I'll get the yellow ochre from Vista. I think it's a nice yellow for the eye. It's a very earthy yellow. So yellow ochre. for the eye first. And then once it dries, we'll add the black. Okay, it's a bit too yellow, so I'm going to lift it out. Okay. And let's see, what do we need to do? We need to darken the edge, so let me go back to the black. Just darken this edge. The very tip of the upper part of the beak. Okay, and let me add the red around here. And then let's add red to the black to create an even deeper red, and add it to the areas where it's darker in shadow. Okay, so I think the yellow is dry, so now we can add the black, a very, very tiny black center. So be careful. Oh, it's not dry. Okay. This is where, this is a boo-boo. So let me just lift this directly with, okay. So if you're doing this, make sure it's dry before you do this, because it will spread. But you can still fix it. You can still lift it off as best as you can and reapply everything. Okay, let's start with the yellow again. And leave it. Okay, so now we'll go here where we can darken it further. Okay, so again, we'll use brown with blue. So burnt umber is best. If you have burnt umber, you can use that with your blue. Ultramarine and burnt umber will give you a nice dark blue. Okay, so that this is really completely in shadow. And then water. to just blend it out. Then I'm just adding the same dark blue to the areas where it's deepest in shadow. Okay, and we're almost there, guys, so not to worry. Again, you don't have to do this as detailed as what I'm doing. Okay, we'll leave this to dry. And let's go and work with the feet, with the foot. Okay, so let's apply a pale brown. I'm using raw umber. Okay, so a more neutral brown. Don't go for the warm browns like sienna. Go for the umbers, or brown oxide, or sepia, whichever more neutral brown you have, that's the one you use. Okay, and let's mix our brown with our black and do the claw. And we have another claw right here. So this will actually take more time and several sessions. So whatever I finish with today, it's probably not the completely finished look that I will be ending up with, but you can see most of the work done already. Everything else after is just like extra detail, which you don't have to do. It's all according to how detailed you want things to be. So it can be very very impressionistic. Okay, and once this is dry, then you can add the details. Okay, using the same brown, you can add blue to it to darken it. So I'm going to apply the darker areas. Then it has some texture, so I'm just going to apply strokes. Okay, and then just dip your brush and soften the edges. Okay, and then blow dryer, because I will add more details. Okay, so now we'll use brown and black. Brown with black. To add more detail. Okay, so just dipping my brush, spreading the concentrated pigment upwards to soften it. Also to create a gradiated effect. A very easy way to do that. You just apply a concentrated color of it and then add water to the edges and pull it towards a section where you want it to slowly fade away. And here I'm also darkening the section because this is in shadow. So blending these two colors together so that they just fade towards each other. And adding texture here and there so it's not too flat. And then I'm just filling in the areas where there's a bit of a white where there shouldn't be. And finally, because this is certainly surely dry, I will now add the black. Hopefully without any problems now to the center. If you really made a huge mistake and it's hard to fix, then you can, if you have watercolor ground, you can cover that area with watercolor ground, wait for it to dry, and then you can paint over it again. The magic of watercolor ground. Okay, so now you have that. We can add a very pale rim around the eye. Let's go for a more orangey color, softer. So we'll just add little folds and a rim around the eye. And we're okay. Okay, so we'll just add here the folds on the face so it's not too flat. Bit more texture here and there. Okay, so this is my parrot macaw. Okay, again, it doesn't have to be done if you want it to be in more detail, more hyper-realistic and whatnot. I probably need to add another layer or two, but for now, I can say that it's 85% to 90% finished. Okay, so I won't do the wood now. We don't have time. Otherwise, it will take forever. But this is how I paint my macaw. And I hope I was able to show you my process if you're wondering how to go about it. Yeah, that's it. So if you have any questions before I go away, just ask away. Or even if I'm already done, you can always ask anytime. Yes, you need to. Yes, watch it over and over. Take your time. Don't be like me and finish it all in one go. Okay, you don't have to, and you shouldn't. You should really take your time so that each layer, each process, you get to enjoy it, because it is quite enjoyable if you just take your time, do it at your own pace. layers are wonderful, and to layer, it's really beautiful. Okay, so I will now flip back to my face so I can say goodbye to you guys properly. Okay, so thank you for sticking with me for a long time, but it really does take that long at least. But this is how big it is. So this is my macaw. You can definitely add background, but you can keep it with a white background because it's already beautiful as it is. It's very colorful. And with the finished wooden stump, it's gonna look so much better. Okay, so please do try it out, and if you do, don't forget to share it in the group. I really love to see your own versions because we all paint differently, and that's what makes it wonderful. So I hope you got to understand things, and again, if you have any questions, like post live, just ask me anytime and I'll answer when I see it. Okay, so thank you guys for joining me, and have a great day. Bye.